Here's what I want everybody to do. I want you to think of a dirty 4-letter word. I'll make sense of that, I promise. You know, in 2013, I almost lost my life to a drug overdose. My wife didn't find me with a needle in my arm. It was the prescription pain pills that almost ended my life. I woke up in the ICU, choking on the tube in my throat that was keeping me alive. No idea how I got there, handcuffed to a gurney, scared, but I was so thankful that I woke up, because I didn't want to die. I just didn't know how to live. My name's Sam, and I'm an alcoholic. My name's Sam, I'm a drug addict. My name's Sam, I'm a recovering addict alcoholic. I have been in recovery since 2004, relapsing constantly, wondering to myself, why can't I stay sober? I thought it had to do with the way I was introducing myself. Because if I introduce myself as an alcoholic, then I can still take drugs, especially prescription pills from the doctor. If I introduce myself as an addict, then I'm entitled to a beer every now and then, right? None of that worked. It didn't matter how I introduced myself in meetings. I couldn't manage to put together any sort of long-term sobriety. So how did I end up in 12-step recovery in the first place? I took my first drink when I was 12 years old. Now, when people hear that, the assumption is I come from a broken home. I was neglected or abused. Divorced parents, or addiction runs in my family. You want to know the truth? None of that applies to me. My parents are still married to this day. There was no neglect, no abuse, no addiction in my family. But here's what was going on with me when I was 12 years old. I was full of anxiety. Everything made me anxious. Waking up, going to school, talking to girls, talking to anybody. I had no social skills because they don't teach that thing in the classroom. And it wasn't being taught to me at home. I was getting bullied. I remember getting picked on in class. Kids would make fun of me because I was small. I even got cornered in the locker room a couple times. And because of all this, I was very insecure. I don't know what you thought about me, but all my life I was very concerned with what I thought you thought about me. Who here worries about what other people think about them? Raise your hand and be honest. About half the room. For those of you that raised your hand, thank you for your honesty. Who in here didn't raise your hand because you were worried about what somebody else would have thought about you if you raised your hand? For those of you that laughed, thank you for your honesty. And I know there's some people out there that want to laugh and want to raise your hand, and you still won't. And that's okay, and I know exactly how that feels. Because that's how I felt my entire life until I took that drink. When I took that drink, all those feelings went away. No more anxiety, no more depression, and I didn't care what you thought about me. Alcohol had done for me what I could not do for myself. When I got into high school, I started with what people refer to as gateway drugs or recreational drugs. I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. You ready? There's no such thing as gateway drugs. The gateway drug is the first one that you try. For some people, it's weed. For somebody else, it might be a prescription pill. I do a lot of speaking in schools, and I tell these kids, if you are already drinking and vaping, that is your gateway drug. But more importantly than that, it's not the substance that's gateway, it's the behavior. It's the behavior behind the intention of why you're doing what you're doing in the first place. What is going on with these kids today in here that they can't go from one class to the other without vaping in the bathroom? What is going on with everybody spiritually and mentally that you can't go to a party and be in a room full of people you've known your entire life and not be comfortable without a drink in your hand? Well, I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, I could be at a party with 100 people and feel like the only one in the room until I took something, until I drank something. That is gateway behavior. And I've never heard a story make that statement more true than the one I'm about to share with you. I just found out that there was a student that needed to be disciplined for sniffing Crystal Light, pretending that it was something else. So by all practical standards, Crystal Light is that kid's gateway drug, is it not? But more importantly, why was anything going up their nose in the first place? That is gateway behavior. I had a kid come up to me after I got done speaking in a high school, and he said, well, what about recreational drug use on the weekend with my friends? That's okay, right? I told him no, for two reasons. Number one, when I think recreation, I think paintball, I think skateboarding, I think cornhole. I don't think about popping Molly and doing lines of cocaine and taking Xanny bars. And two, and more importantly, every single person I know that struggles with addiction, myself included, started as a recreational drug user. Then, when I was 16 years old, I got addicted to prescription pain pills. Now, for anybody that's paying attention, you notice my language shifted here. I said I got addicted to. This all started off with me trying to self-medicate. This all started off with me trying to fit in, try to get you to like me. But then there's some things that I don't care how strong you are, I don't care what religion you are, and I really don't care how much money you or your parents have, you just can't fight the addiction. It's very easy to tell yourself that you're going to take just one of something before you actually take it. But once whatever one is gets into your body, you lose the ability to control when you're going to take your next one or when you're going to take your last one. For me, it's usually when I end up in the ICU or in handcuffs. I had surgery on my ankle when I was 16 years old. The doctor sent me home with a prescription for Percocet, and I took one pill. I fell in love right away. And I'm a pretty smart guy. If one is good, two must be better, right? No, more is not better. More just means more. More almost killed me. See, I wonder if I would have known then what I know today about prescription pain medication if I still would have taken them. Because what I know today is that things like Percocet, Demerol, Vicodin, Dilaudid, Oxycodone, fentanyl, all that stuff is heroin in a bottle. You want to know the difference? One comes from the pharmacy, and the other one comes from the dope man. That is the only difference. Those pills ran out, they always do. One's too many and 100's never enough. So I went back to doing what I would normally do, which is just drink and smoke on the weekends. And then the weekends became the weeknights. And then the weeknights became the week mornings, and that behavior continued so much that I didn't even graduate high school on time. Now, after high school, I had a lot of not yets. And a not yet looks like this. When I was 12 years old, I saw my father smoking cigarettes. My father looked so cool when he would smoke cigarettes, and I wanted to be cool too. But I told myself, I'm not going to smoke cigarettes. Not yet. When I started smoking cigarettes, I saw what I perceived to be the popular kids in high school smoking weed. I wanted to be popular too, but I said, I'm never going to smoke weed. Not yet. When I started smoking weed, I said, I'm never going to do hard drugs. Does everybody see where I'm going with this? Doing cocaine was a not yet for me. Look, I'm going to spare everybody the pain and suffering that is the next 10 years of my life. But what I will tell you is this. All that gateway behavior, all that recreational drug use, all those not yets, 3 arrests, 3 treatments, 1 near fatal overdose, and a 3-year jail sentence, and that's how I ended up in 12-step recovery. But when I got there, I had a hard time staying sober for a lot of reasons. Number one, I was always comparing out instead of comparing in. Always looking for the differences instead of the similarities, because I would hear things like this. Well, I just got fired from another job. I just got divorced. I just got my second DUI. Or I just got out of prison. None of that applied to me, because you know what my bottom was when I got here in 2004? I got in a fight with my girlfriend, and I showed up late for work. That was it. I don't belong here. I'm not one of them. It wasn't until later on I heard somebody make this statement, and this person said this. If you knew how I felt in here when I wasn't drinking and using drugs, you wouldn't ask me why I did it. I could relate to that. So I stopped comparing my insides to other people's outsides, and then I was able to put together a little bit of sobriety. But then other things would get in my way. Things like friends and family members. All the people that looked at me and said, dude, you've been going to those meetings for like 2 months now. Don't you think you're overreacting? You're doing so good. Come out with us this weekend, man. Just have one. Have some willpower. You know that mental illness and addiction is the only disease where people question somebody else's form of treatment? If I had cancer and I was on my 2nd month of chemotherapy, nobody would look at me and be like, dude, you've been going to chemo for like 2 months now. Don't you think you're overreacting? Why don't you have some willpower? So why do we do that when it comes to addiction and mental illness? I can't tell you how many times I've been in a meeting and heard something like this. Well, these meetings are really helping me, but my husband just thinks that I'm making too big of a deal out of it and he doesn't want me to come anymore. Or my personal favorite, young lady came up to me after I got done talking in high school. She said she was really able to relate to me. She went home and she told her parents about her anxiety and her depression. Do you know what her parents said? You're just being a teenager and you need to grow up. Statements like that are killing people and need to stop. They almost killed me. So I stopped listening to my friends and family. But then other things would get in my way, like Doctors that didn't know how to treat patients that suffer from addiction and allowed me to dictate the course of my own treatment. Like that time that I was in recovery and I got bored because I needed to feel something. When I got there, you took my medicine away. You said, this is a program of abstinence. You cannot drink and you cannot take drug. Here, you can have these steps. Well, I wasn't working the steps, and because of that, I was slowly dying inside. I needed to feel something. I figured the safest way for me to be able to feel something would be, let's go to the doctor, because anything they give me is going to be safe, right? I did enough research. I convinced this doctor that I was ADD, and he sent me home with a prescription for Adderall, knowing that I had a history of addiction. Well, needless to say, I wasn't able to stay sober that round because when I take pills, I like to drink. And when I drink, I like to take more pills. So I started being more upfront about my history and stopped trying to hustle doctors. But then other things would get in my way, like people that didn't know how to store their narcotic prescriptions. This is nothing I'm proud of, but I cannot tell you how many homes I've been in and found narcotic medications in the most random places, like your kitchen cabinets, the countertops, or a junk drawer. Look, if you're gonna leave a bottle of Percocet in a junk drawer, you might as well replace it with a loaded gun. I would actually argue that the pills are more dangerous because people are actually afraid of the gun. But then there's all the people that just couldn't help but talk about it, and you know who I'm talking about. Like that time that I was at my neighbor's house for dinner, and they were telling me about their little son, Johnny. See, he's struggling in school. He just can't concentrate. So they took him to the doctor, and he got diagnosed as ADHD. And they sent him home with a prescription for Adderall. Thank you. Thank you. I don't even need to look around your house anymore because you just told me there's drugs there. Think about all the people that are in your home. Friends, neighbors, coworkers, babysitters, contractors, realtors. You never know when somebody that's in your house struggles with addiction. The people that I stole from sure didn't. The pills that are in your house need to be secured, and what you're taking is none of anybody else's business. But you guys want to know something? At the end of the day, it didn't matter how I introduced myself in meetings, what somebody else's stories was, what my friends and family said, what the doctor's order were, or what you had in your house or what you talked about. You want to know the real reason that I could not stay sober after every single relapse? Because I was just too afraid to ask for help. The very first thing I asked everybody to do was what? Think of a dirty 4-letter word. I'm willing to bet that nobody came up with the word help. See, all my life, help has been the dirtiest 4-letter word that I've ever known. It's the one thing that everybody needs, some people might offer, but no one will ask for. Because when we do, it makes us feel weak. I was too afraid of the stigma that comes with addiction to reach out and ask for help. I would have rather tried myself and failed than asked you for help and succeed. Maybe if I would have asked for help, I would have graduated high school on time. Maybe if I would have asked for help, I wouldn't have had that overdose. Maybe if I would have asked for help, I wouldn't have ended up in jail. Because they wanted to lock me up. They said I was good for nothing and they called me a junkie. I'm not a junkie. I'm just a person. And what you're looking at is a person that struggles with addiction. It's not always toothless, it's not always homeless, and it's not always covered in track marks. Because I can assure you, whether I was walking around the ghetto in Newark, New Jersey, or buying pills off of some rich kid right here in Loudoun County where I live today, my addiction was right there with me. But my addiction was not me. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not an addict. I'm not a drunk. I'm not a junkie. I am a person in long-term recovery. And the last time I checked, people are not disposable. 3 years ago, I got arrested for a nonviolent drug offense and sentenced to 3 years in jail. If not for my good behavior, I would have just gotten out last week. You can't lock us up. We're not bad people that need to do good things. We're sick people that need help getting well. And if I was locked up for the last 3 years, I never would have gotten well. I never would have had my son. I never would have been able to travel and speak to the tens of thousands of students, parents, inmates, and community leaders and let them know that there is indeed help in the rooms of recovery, in your schools, and in your community. I am so glad that I got the help that I needed. Because I did, my mother got her son back. My wife got her husband back. And yesterday, April 5th, 2019, I just celebrated 3.5 years of continuous sobriety, and today I've got a baby boy who's never seen his father take a drink or a drug. Now somebody tell me, what's disposable about that? So here's what I would challenge everybody to do. Whatever it is you're struggling with, and we all have some challenge, anxiety, depression, insecurity, finances, relationship, or addiction, don't make the mistake that I did. Don't be too proud. Don't be too ashamed. You go and you find somebody that can help you out, because I can guarantee whatever it is that you're going through, not only has somebody else been through it, but they have found a way to overcome it, because everyone is a failure alone. But no one is a success by themselves. And maybe it's not you. Maybe you've got a loved one or a friend that's struggling with something. I've learned that there's a big difference between telling on someone and telling for someone. And I'm so grateful that somebody told for me. You never know. Telling for someone just might be the help that saves their life. Thank you.